Welcome to Magnificent Living Today. I'm your host, Carl Powell, and I'm here to talk about a subject that I have no idea what I'm talking about, and pronunciation is going to be a challenge. My guest today is Lutalo Matsumoyo, and
Mestrando Saci.
see, I'm never going to say that one. But don't go anywhere, we're going to be right back.
Getting back into the flow. Faith, love, optimism, wisdom. Some people go through life and other people flow through life. Which one do you choose? Living in the path of flow is an everyday choice. We must constantly challenge our mind, body, and spirit to be in unison. How do you plan to flow through your life this week, this month, this year?
So today we're going to be talking about capoeira. So I'm going to allow you guys to have the floor, and you explain to me first what is capoeira.
Well, capoeira is
Capoeira.
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 Capoeira is an Afro-Brazilian martial art that was developed by the Africans who came during the slave trade from Africa to Brazil to work and live as slaves. They developed it as a means to defend themselves from the oppression of slavery. It's a very clever movement form that incorporates martial arts, music, dance, and acrobatics.
So what is the history of it? I mean, when did it come to Brazil? I mean, what's the year? Do you have a year, estimated year?
Well, capoeira, it came during the slave trade. And the slave trade, and we have to remember that the slave trade in Brazil lasted longer than it did anywhere else in the Western Hemisphere. We're talking 1532 to 1888. Brazil was the last place to end slavery in 1888. So Africans were being kidnapped and brought to Brazil for a longer period. Over about 5 million Africans came to Brazil during this period. That's 40% of all the slaves taken from Africa and brought to this side of the world were taken to Brazil.
And kept there for a while.
Kept there, right? So that's like, by comparison, that's 10 times more than the number that were brought here to the United States.
I bet you Americans don't know that.
Yeah. So there were a lot of people brought, and slavery in Brazil was particularly brutal, and that's the way that's what necessitated capoeira. When you have so many slaves, you tend, I suppose, not to be as concerned with their material and physical condition as, say, for example, someone in America where slaves may be a little more difficult to replace. You tend to be a little more concerned about how they're treated. But slaves in Brazil were tortured, brutally, neglected, and I mean, slavery was inhumane by anybody's standard, anywhere in the Western Hemisphere. But in Brazil, slavery was particularly brutal. So there was it necessitated a way to protect yourself. You had to. The slaves had to protect themselves from these brutal tortures. So there were many slave revolts in Brazil, and also a lot of runaways who would run to these maroon societies in the hills. We call them quilombos. These societies were scattered all throughout the most inaccessible territories deliberately to frustrate the slave hunters who would come looking to recapture these slaves. So they would scatter these communities throughout the mountains, and they would live there and live free. And there were many, like I said, slave revolts. One of the most, maybe some people know about some of the revolts in Brazil. We know about some of the ones here, but one of the ones in Brazil was the Muslim revolt. For example, in 1835, where the Africans who were brought, they were Muslims, and they were brought here, they organized a slave revolt. And the participants in that revolt were called the Malés. So it was one of the largest. Their idea was, we're going to end slavery in Brazil, period. And didn't work, but they gave it a good effort, and they're known as the Malés.
So can you tell me about the martial art aspect of it?
Sure. The martial art aspect of Brazil, of capoeira, is it takes the movements are a reflection of the experience of the people who developed it. A lot of times, you know, you'll see in our movements that we do a lot of esquivas, we're dodging, evasive movements that we call esquivas. When you're, for example, fighting in chains, you have to learn to evade. So, you know, it becomes very important to learn to move your body. The rhythm that we use to fight is core to what we do as the martial art aspect. They're sweeping movements, kicks, you know, strikes. The strikes a lot of times came later when Mestre Bimba developed Capoeira Regional, because it's difficult to practice strikes when, you know, when you don't have your hands to strike with. So you have your legs perhaps, and you have to move and dodge. So the movements of Capoeira developed over time, you know, and it was proportional and related to the experience of the people, you know, who were caught in that horrible situation, and learning to practice those movements.
So it's kind of a martial art that tells a story.
Yes.
That's very
It's
cool.
a freedom song.
Yeah.
It's a freedom song. It tells the story of the people in their experience. It tells their story, and it tells about their fight for freedom. It tells about what they experienced. It tells about what they went through.
Yeah, I watched a video on the internet, and it was like watching a play. It wasn't like watching two people fight. It was like watching this really cool play, and I watched the story play out. And I didn't know what the story was exactly about, but I knew there was passion and real people involved in the story.
Yes, sir.
So I enjoyed watching it. Now, doing it is a whole other thing, because it looks relatively difficult.
Capoeira is not difficult. It can be difficult because, again, there are levels of everything that we practice, you know. But the basic movements of Capoeira are very simple. You know, anybody can do Capoeira. A famous Mestre Pastinha said Capoeira is for everybody. Everybody can do Capoeira. Whoever doesn't do Capoeira is because they don't want to. So it's for anybody, any age, young, old, you know, tall, short, wide, narrow, whatever your size, age, you can do Capoeira. Everybody can do Capoeira.
And you want to tell me about your organization?
Sure. Capoeira Maculele. Let's start with Capoeira Maculele. Right.
Maculele.
Capoeira Maculele.
Maculele.
Maculele was founded by our Mestre Fran, Francisco Antonio Rodrigues da Silva.
Perfect.
Mestre Fran, on November 5th in 1991 in Londrina, Brazil. The idea, he designed a program, Mestre Fran, that was designed to help impoverished youth in Brazil escape the traps of street life. So his program was a social program. It was very successful. Many of the instructors today, you're looking at one of them. You're looking at a product of his success in that endeavor that started with him. You know, they're now mestrandos, mestres, and professors and instructors in the program today around, and they're spread out around the world. And they come from those impoverished areas that he worked, where he designed his program. And so it shows the success. He has a successful school in Brazil. We have groups all over the world. We have one in DC now. So yeah, the idea behind Capoeira Maculele, our philosophy, is that we believe that in the empowerment of the human being. We believe in the spiritual, moral, and social development, and of course physical development of the human being. We believe that the physical training that a person receives in Capoeira mirrors their ability to develop and their potential in life. So by revealing their physical talents, they come to see that I'm capable of something, of anything that I put my mind to. I can face challenges, I can overcome those challenges.
So it's much more than just teaching someone how to move.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a life philosophy. And, you know, we believe in awakening the social awareness of our students, because Capoeira is a product of a social, political, socioeconomic condition. And the people who developed Capoeira were responding to that condition. So it's necessary in order for Capoeira to survive, to remain a part of that, you know, to remain a part of that condition. At Capoeira, the story of Capoeira is it's a freedom song. You know, we fought for our freedom. Capoeira helped end slavery in Brazil. And today it can be used as a tool to help, you know, deal with a lot of the social conditions, socioeconomic conditions we see in impoverished communities around the world.
Oh yeah, because
disproportionately affect.
Yeah,
you know,
because slavery is still here. It's not like
That's right.
slavery disappeared. It's
Of
here.
course, that's right.
It's just taken on a different form.
That's right, and we also believe that, you know, capoeira should be imbibed as a life philosophy, not just the physical practice of the martial art, but it's a life philosophy. And in turn, the practitioner, the capoeirista, should seek to instill capoeira within the social fabric of the communities in which they live. For example, because capoeira wouldn't be here today if it were not integrated into the social fabric of the community. It's had to take on a number of disguises in order to survive. The martial art had to be masked. So the dance and the music and the acrobatics that you see were ways that disguises that capoeira had to assume in order to survive. They had to adapt to. You know, if the people in the community were not involved to warn the capoeiristas that the cavalry was coming or that the slave master was coming, you know, if people were not attached to capoeira, if the community was not attached to it, it wouldn't be here today. So it's important to keep that aspect of capoeira alive. It needs to be a part of the social fabric of every community that we live in.
And how could I become a part of your group if I decided that this is really interesting to me and I'd love to be a part of your group?
You can connect with us on www.joinmaculeledc.com. We have a Facebook page. You go on Facebook, DC Capo. The Maculele DC page will come up, and then you can join on the or you can join on the website, so that we have a link where you can join the group.
So there are always ongoing. Would you call them classes? Would you call
classes? Yeah. We will be commencing our classes on August 3rd at the Tayari Cassell Martial Arts Academy. That's at 949 Bonifant Street in Silver Spring, Maryland, downtown Silver Spring. They're going to be on Saturday. Classes will begin at 1 o'clock for children and 2 o'clock for adults. And we're going to expand out, of course, as need dictates. We'll expand out and offer classes. We're also going to be offering classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays at the same location. But of course, we'll offer more classes as demand dictates.
So as you have, if I joined and I started to take a class, is it a weekly class? Is it something that I do every week?
Every week.
Week.
You begin immediately to, hopefully, to integrate capoeira into your life. So you would start classes, you would take classes Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. You know,
so it becomes
ideally.
It really becomes a part of your life.
Yes.
And how long are the classes generally?
About an hour.
About an hour. And you learn about tradition, you learn about the dance, you learn about the history.
Every aspect of capoeira. You learn, again, language. Portuguese, we speak Portuguese. Mestrando Saci is very good at Portuguese, by the way.
Yeah, I know. I live in Brazil. I'm from Brazil.
But you're going to learn some Portuguese because most of the language we use in capoeira, the movements, you know, are the labels are Portuguese. So you learn the language, you learn music, you learn the instruments, you learn how to play the berimbau, you learn how to play the atabaque, the drum, the pandeiro, which you see Mestrando Saci holding. You learn how to play the go-go, which is a stick with 2 nuts, shells on it, and you hit it, you know. So
he doesn't even have to talk. He just.
So in capoeira, in the rodas, we play in a circle where everybody comes together and we play music. It's music and it's playing. We learn together. So 2 capoeiristas will enter the roda and do what we call to jogar or play. And that's how we learn. That's how we practice. How we grow together. That's how we learn to communicate. And we play to the rhythm. The berimbau is the soul of the roda. So you learn to play these instruments. You have the gunga, you have the medio, you have the viola. The gunga is the big one. It plays the deep tones. The medio is the medium, plays the medium tone, and the viola plays a higher tone. It's smaller tone, berimbau or kabasha.
Cabaça.
Right, yeah. Kabasha.
Ou catuto.
Right, catuto.
Yeah.
Okay.
Catuto.
Easy. Catuto.
Catuto.
Yeah.
Has the smaller one, and it plays higher tones. So you enter the roda, we play in a bateria. The people playing the instruments are in the the bateria, and the music is going, the energy is high, it's beautiful. And you know, you're playing, everybody's entering, we're all friends, we're all together, it's a chance for you to learn. The hardest are really where a lot of people who don't practice capoeira, that's really where they decide, I want to do this. You know, when people witness that, the energy, the sharing, the communication, the happiness, the joy, you know, it's contagious. And so that's how a lot of people decide when they see hardness.
And I think when people are looking at an exercise program or something that they want to join or do, a lot of time it doesn't encompass so much. So you might go in and take a class and never talk to anyone and never interact with anyone. But when I was watching the classes, what I thought was so awesome is everyone was sitting there, they were engaged. So it's not just a class, an exercise class you're going to, it's kind of a social event.
It's a social event, it's a party.
It's a party.
Everybody is engaged. People walk into a harder and they're pulled in. Strangers, come on. And it's very similar, you see in African American tradition, it's the same spirit as the ring shout. You know, which is a ritualistic prayer that comes from Africa. So it's a similar idea. The people in the ring are dancing and clapping and praying, calling to the ancestors, and you know, and bringing that good ashe, bringing that energy down, that power, and it makes everybody stronger. The idea is if we work together, you know, we play together, we learn together, we can all develop and overcome any challenge. We're developing and we're overcoming these challenges together. I'm here to help you, brother, sister, to overcome these challenges. So it's non-competitive. So even though you're in that harder, playing with that person is not out to hurt you or take your head off. There's no physical contact, you know, very little, and you're just playing, you're learning. It's a beautiful experience. That's how I got into capoeira. That's what made me want to be a part of it, was just the community. And the learning experience, just the ability to be with someone and learn with them without being in an adversarial position.
And I think in this high-tech environment world that we live in, so often people are disattached. They're disconnected. And so it's so nice to find something where you can connect.
Absolutely.
Because I find, especially in this area, people get in their car in the morning and they drive to work, they go into their office, they might stay in their office all day, maybe have interaction with 2 or 3 people, get back in their car, drive back home, and the whole time they're connected on their telephone.
That's right. Everybody's in their own zone, their own box, and they stay in that box. And they're apprehensive actually nowadays about, you know, actually connecting with other people. We do this digitally. I was talking with my son the other day. One of the things we talked about, I was like, you know, when I was growing up, I used to watch the young girls. They would be outside doing double dutch, you know, double dutch, playing jacks, you know, doing their cheers, and everybody was outside and everybody was convening and having fun together and attaching, you know, as people, you know, attaching. Now everybody's digital, everything is digital, so we have to make special efforts. Just like we live in a more sedentary society, and we have to make a special effort, which is what you specialize in, and getting people moving. We have to make those special efforts to get together and socialize and connect with each other, as you know, people connecting with people. And I think capoeira kills all those birds with one stone. You know, it engages all those activities simultaneously.
So I'm really interested to see it for myself, live and in action.
Yes, sir.
All right, so we're going to take a little break here. When we come back, we're going to be doing some exercises, some demonstrations, and I want to see you play that thing again.
Yeah, no problem.
Andero.
Don't go to, we're going to be right back.